Welcome back. In this video, we're just going to look at how you can make your own custom widgets. The SDK really requires two widgets. One is a sign-in button, a call to action um, that the user can press to present the modal to sign in. And the other is a progress widget, which will show them, their current progression. And these are very simple to add. Basically, let's just create, I'm going to create a new button. Going to make it bigger. Put the wrong one. I'll just put it at the top here. So I'm kind of making a button from scratch. I should have just clarified. You can use these default prefabs, and if you want to, you can go into here and edit them. Use a different Bitcoin image, etc. Change the text, but just to show you the full feature set, I'm going to make a button from scratch. Here's my sign in button. I'm just going to add a script here, which is say my sign in button. And I'm just going to edit the script. It's good to kind of look at the default sign in button script just to see how it works. So it's fairly simple. Kind of two functions that you want to add to your sign in button is in the start function. You want to subscribe to an event called should show sign in, and then obviously unsubscribe from this event. So the SDK will basically send an event to anything that's subscribed to this. When the SDK says it thinks you should show the sign in button, it'll send this event. And then in this show self button, you can show and hide your button. For the default, we're actually using a canvas group, which lets us to kind of hide the button by setting its alpha to 0 or 1 without having to delete the game object, but you can do it however you want. So I'm just going to remove this for now. So I'm just going to make it always show. Just very basically it for the sign in button. You just also want to have another function here. So when the button is pressed, you basically call show web view. So I just want to add the event here to the click and then go my sign in button and show menu. And now when I build again, once you press that, it will show the sign in button. And then if the SDK thinks you should show it or hide it, you will get an event here. So we look into the example. Show self will be triggered with a true or false. If it's true, you can show your button. If it's false, you can hide it. So it's very simple for the sign in button. A bit more complicated is the progress widget. So let's just make a progress widget. Again, I'm just going to make a button. Copy and paste this. Let's call it progress so we don't get confused. Remove this function here, remove this one here. Let's put it over here. So this is going to be a very ugly button, but I think it's going to be the most informative way to explain the different functions. So I'm just going to put a bunch of text labels in here. This first one will be current earnings today. This next one will be next reward amount. Let's move it down a little bit. And this next one will be next reward time. This one down a bit. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to change these labels to the actual values in our script. So let's make a script here. My progress widget. And let's take a look at one of the default progress widget controllers. So progress has a lot more going on. So these have quite a lot more involved, these default ones, because they have the animation of the thing going around. So you know, these can be as complicated as you like, but I'm just going to show you the basics. So in the start function, I want to, again, we subscribe to events to should show the progress. So if it's true or false, you might want to show a hide. So for example, if the user hadn't signed in, you don't want to show the progress. But after the user has signed in, you might want to show the progress. Also, I think the SDK fires these events before it's initialized. You might want to hide the widget, but once the SDK has actually started, the SDK will send an event saying I've initialized, so please show, and these functions will get that event. So again, likewise, I can just do show self. I'm not going to do anything here, but again, you might want to add a canvas element to hide it, or show an animation to hide it, whatever you like for your game. But the main one here is there is a set data function. So whenever the SDK, so the SDK is constantly getting data from the ZBD server about the current progress of the user. So every few seconds. So once that happens, this widget will get the event here. So this will trigger it, receives some data, and I want to basically this gets the current data payload. If we take a look at this ZBD progress model here, it's got a bunch of data. So for example, the current earn today, the time until next reward, the next reward amount, the next reward ID, a bunch of kind of stuff here. But we're just going to focus on these because this is mainly what the default UI is showing. We have some other ones showing the the value in USD, current total playtime, etc., etc. But let's just focus on the main key features here. So we just also want to let's PNP Pro, and we want to just have a link to our labels. So earn today, public, next reward, and what was that one? I think it was like next reward time. Let's call this next reward amount. And what we can do is the earn today, we can set this to the current and today value from the server. Ooh, the next reward amount. Likewise. And next reward time. Time to next reward. Yep. We can just set that here. Again, this is not going to be formatted really nicely. I'm not adding seconds here. So you want to inspect this data, see the format, and format it accordingly. Just a little note on the next reward time. At the moment in this version of the SDK, this basically will tell you that the amount of time it will take to unlock the next reward. So, for example, if it says the next reward is in 3 minutes worth of gameplay, you'll have to play for 3 minutes to unlock that. But when you query this progress response, say a minute later, it will still say 3 minutes of gameplay. So this doesn't kind of update in real time. So if you take a look at the progress widgets, we're doing a few complicated things here to basically try and work out how long is left. So if once we get the reward for that reward ID, if it says the next reward time is in 3 minutes, we actually kind of keep track of on the client side how much time has passed. So then we can animate the progress bar accordingly. So if we play for 1 minute, once we query set data again, it'll still say the next reward time is in 3 minutes, but we've played for a minute, so we know it's in 2 minutes. We are going to make an update to the SDK to give you a value which will tell you how long is left. So inset data in the progress the next reward. In later, it'll say they have 2 minutes left. Make it a bit easier, but that functionality is not there, so we're having to kind of keep track of it locally. But you can kind of inspect all these progress widgets here to see how it works. I think this progress widget vertical is a bit simpler. Yeah, it's a bit simpler. This one here is a bit more complicated because it's doing some funky stuff with line renderers. But the progress widget vertical isn't, so it's probably a bit it's a bit easier to understand. But if I just go back to my progress widget, all we're doing here is just basically just setting some text just to show how you get an event that triggers set data. This probably comes every like 5 seconds or something, and then you can call this to get the current progress payload and interpret the values accordingly. Yeah, like I said, you don't have to make one from scratch. You can use the progress widget, which is here, and just change the colors. That might be a better thing for you to do. So it's yellow here. We can change it to like red or something, etc. Change the image, etc. That might be a better thing for you to do. Again, we also have a progress widget, which is a vertical one, which is this vertical one. The bar actually starts from the bottom and goes up, where this other one it's a circle and a line that goes around. So you can customize either of these. Okay, but let's just leave that for now. So that should all be there. Let's just make a quick build just to see it in action. Okay, so we've got our very ugly buttons here. So I'm going to press the sign in. Again, that just shows the web view. Going to sign in. Oops, we actually did forget one thing, didn't we? This is not going to work. In our custom one, we actually have to assign the labels. And just to note, same as we did in our sign in button, you can add an event to show the menu to the progress one as well, if it is a button. Sorry, let's just build again. While it's building, I'm just going to sign in to prove our sign in button worked. And then we can see our custom progress widget has updated accordingly. So we can see 0 for the current earn today. Here we've got 15,000 for the sats. That's pretty much it for the customizability in this version of the SDK. One other thing to mention that developers find useful is if you go into ZBD controller, there is a function you can call, just called get user status. So if I go to my game controller here, I might want to call that. I don't know what to call it here, but this basically will return the status of the user. If we take a look what that actually means, so it returns. I think the main thing that's important here is the status here. It returns the user ID of the user, their SDK ID, and it also returns their ZBD user ID, i.e., if they have a ZBD account, it will return that ID. The main thing here you want is status. So we can see here that status can be the values, and this is actually all in the documentation, so it's probably best to look at the documentation. And sorry, we talk about how to customize the widgets here as well. But the status here, it can be unlinked. If it's unlinked, this means the user has not signed into the ZBD Rewards SDK at all. If it's signed into it, but they may have signed with a gamer tag, or they may have signed in with an email. If the email, they may not have a ZBD account yet. But once they actually get their Bitcoin reward sent to them, will get an email from ZBD telling them to sign up. And once they've signed up, have a ZBD account, then the status will be ZBD link. This means the user has signed into the ZBD rewards and created an account in the ZBD app.